there, welcome back to the channel. In my last video, I talked about how we're going to be looking at some of the unfortunately ugly occurrences that happen in schools and how that's related to family life and how thankfully so much can be controlled, helped, prevented, solved by work that's done in families. And so we're going to start with bullying because it's something that is really been a spotlight in the media. So a lot of people are talking about it, thinking about it, it is a very important topic to consider and think about. So I will talk about a little bit about my own experience being a bully, and that's really what this episode is not so much when you're a victim, but when you're the perpetrator. In the next video, we'll talk about being the victim of bullying. What I think about is myself because I was I'm not sure if I would have been labeled as a bully by today's standards, probably. Um, though I was kind of a sneaky bully because I was really like the perfect kid with adults, very polite and kind because that was how I was raised. But then I got my sense of power and agency from bossing around, manipulating, and being cruel to whatever friend I had like ensnared into my web at that point in my elementary experience. And I I grew up in a home with a lot of ACEs, so adverse childhood experiences, but aside from that, because many children who are either being bullies or are experiencing that, not experiencing that, we'll get to them in a minute, but those who are enacting that behavior, it's a power grab, right? I don't feel in control. I don't feel good about myself. And so I am going to tried to control this other person to give me a sense of power. And it still might make you feel like crap. You might know, well, this is mean. I'm being a mean person. But you also have this desire for power. And so it's important as a parent to kind of assess how powerful your son or daughter, your children feel. And one way to do that is by making sure that they have responsibilities that you trust them with, that they are navigating several areas of their life independently. So in my household, which was beautiful in many ways and less so in many others, there were a number of things that were happening. So very extreme things. So there was a lot of yelling, and my father had a lot of demons that he was fighting on. He abused alcohol. So he would fly into rages and say unkind things and just that got to the core, like, you are bad, you are dumb, you are, were the messages that I got. And so those obviously overt things, which most parents are not doing, obviously undermine your sense of power. But there were small things. I helped out around the house, but for the most part, my parents very actively wanted me to enjoy childhood because in their growing up experiences, they were just like many parents do, trying to give me something better. Well, inadvertently, I ended up feeling pretty helpless between being yelled at and feeling like I couldn't manage that, and then feeling like, well, I can't clean, I can't cook, there's nothing I can really do for myself. I'm just dependent. And even the things that I try to do, I'm told, well, that's not right. Versus some really excellent examples that I've witnessed as a teacher and that I've witnessed in other parents in which they allow their children to take on a lot of personal responsibility. I've talked about this before, but even as a Montessori teacher, even children at the age of 3 were getting their own snack, washing their own dishes, sweeping the floor, and cleaning. And you can see the glow of that sense of power. I can take care of myself. I am worthwhile. I can manage something that's important. That sense of agency is really important. And unfortunately, we're in a culture, both in schools and in parenting, where a lot is being done for kids as if that's nice. It's not nice. It's cruel. And I I don't mean it as you're bad for doing that. I think many parents have been given the message that if they ask their children to take on responsibilities and do things for themselves, that they are being bad parents. So it's really your job to just serve your little demigod, but that's not what's best for anybody. That's not what's best for the family. And I do think that children in those situations, those who feel out of control, or students who, or kids who just feel like they can't offer anything, contribute anything, they do have this desire to kind of grab power. That's one reason why I think we see bullying in schools. But at the end of the day, it's not a formula. It's the same thing with school shootings or just any behavior, antisocial behavior, cruel behavior, behavior that we deem morally amiss in our society. Talk to your children, know them every day, understand where they're coming from. Every chance you have on the drive to school, when you're waking up in the morning, hey, how are things doing? How are things going? How are you feeling? I understand that we have chosen to live very busy lives, and that's fine. But nothing is more important than seeing one another and knowing one another and talking to one another. I see students come in. Okay, I have 22 students, which is a low number for first grade. I'm grateful to be in that district, but I'm essentially trying to raise 22 kids for 8 hours a day. And so they come into my classroom and I notice them. I do my best. There are 22. So, and I see, so and so is, you can tell, like he's fidgety, he's kind of nervous. And so, as students are getting started on morning work, I'll approach that student. Hey, how's it going? And, oh, I'm fine. Oh, you seem a little like you're using your fingers a lot today. Are you, are you tapping them because you're feeling nervous or what, oh, well, yeah, I had a bad morning. I didn't sleep very well. Oh, no, why didn't you sleep very well? And you engage in a conversation, an event, and you can see sometimes even just talking about it, even just the fact that somebody noticed is enough to, you can see the affect of the child change and be okay. And sometimes it requires more intervention. So a different example is I noticed that one of my sweet girls, so I teach first graders for those of you that are new, and I noticed that when we had our circle in the morning and it was time for her to say, I forget what the students had chosen. So it was a student-led circle, and I think the topic was like, what's your favorite toy or something like that. And she was embarrassed. Oh, no, it was, what do you want to be when you grow up? And which I thought, oh, that's a cute little, that's a great topic for them to think about. I love that some of them said, I don't know, I have a lot of time to think about that, which is a great answer from a first grader. Anyway, I digress. So it got to her, and I could see that she was really embarrassed to share. And so she kind of mumbled, and a student said, oh, can you please say that again? I didn't hear you. And she started to get upset. And so I intervened, and I said, I pulled her aside, and we talked about, I know you have so many great things to say. Can you tell me why you're feeling embarrassed to say them? And she came out with this specific event that had occurred between her and another child months ago. And somehow this particular situation triggered a reminder of that for her. And she was crying and saying that the student had laughed at her about something. And since then, the behavior hadn't occurred again. It wasn't like he was this terrible person that was bullying her. No, this just sweet, sensitive little baby was reacting to something just like we all do. We have a memory that hurts us and we store it, and then something triggers it. But as it came out, she started talking about all of these other things that were going on, like how, recess is her least favorite time of the day, and she's worried she doesn't have people to play with. And so I set up a play date with her and some of the other students and in the other first grade classrooms, and it ended up being fine, and she was able to make friends and so on. And we check in now and then. But as a parent, were she my daughter, every day there would be conversations about how she's feeling, how she's navigating life, what she's thinking about. And I think that some parents aren't sure how to have those conversations. But there's nothing more important that you're doing to ensure your child's emotional well-being, social well-being, success as an adult, than talking to them and getting to know them and understand them and help them navigate tricky social and emotional situations. Parents spend so much time thinking about, making sure that their kid isn't eating a processed food, or making sure that they're not saying no, or making sure that, they're, I don't know, just these things that seem so small, when what is so important is that you are talking to your children, that you know them, that you understand where they're coming from. Because you, parents, have the power and responsibility more than anyone else to ensure that level of emotional health. Because as hard as we work in schools, we can only do so much, especially when it's not coming from home first. So I always feel like I get on one topic and it kind of bleeds into all of these other related topics, but the point is, we all want to feel powerful. We all need a sense of agency. And when the scales start to tip and we feel like we can't trust ourselves at all and we have no power, we can often start looking at maladaptive ways to cope with that, like trying to control somebody else. Many adults are in this pattern as well. I know that I have been there. So notice how your child feels. And sometimes it's not just a conversation, especially if your child is younger. Sometimes it's just observing. Do you see them trying to grasp at power? How do you see them interacting with friends or talking about friends? So pay attention to those things and look for opportunities not only to engage your child in conversation so you can have open conversations about that and really listen, but also think about ways to empower your child by giving them more responsibility, letting them do more, and explicitly teaching them how to do certain things. Like when we talked about teaching your child to order their environment, teach them how to vacuum, or have them observe you and then ask them, so what did you notice? When you do this next time, what are you gonna do? Empower them so that they don't find clever but less helpful, beneficial to society ways of getting that power. Thanks for watching.